Good evening, folks. Thanks very much for coming in. I hope you're all safe and well. So tonight we want to welcome back again the man from City of the Dead Tours in Edinburgh, Mr. Jamie Corstorphine. Welcome back, Jamie. Always good to see your cheery face. I missed you the first time you were round because of ill health. As everybody knows, I was seriously ill. So I made a point of being here tonight, you know, for a catch-up. So how's things in Edinburgh? You know, what's been happening?
It's quiet. It's quiet at the moment in Edinburgh. I mean, there's people around, but obviously with restrictions, everywhere's closed at the moment. So yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, but there's still a few people walking about. I've been going across a few times to the office, and getting stuff sorted out there. Because we're looking to reopen on the 1st of May to open bookings up. Again, we're not too sure on restrictions yet. So we're still waiting on word from the government on what's allowed, what's not allowed. But fingers crossed, we'll be back to at least running some sort of tours on the 1st of May. Fingers crossed.
It's been a long time, just over a year now. You know,
it has, yeah.
I think everybody's been in the bucket. But we're the same here. We're the end of May. I think we're allowed to do some kind of travel, and it's just a case of wait and see. Of course, we're working with you on the Darkest Mile project, which we're really, really keen to get up and running as well. You know, so hopefully, fingers and legs and everything crossed that it's going to be very, very soon that we can get over and get started. But Sarah's in the chat and Jamie Guthrie's in the chat. So Jamie says you were here before and I had a couple of questions for you. I've read Charlotte's book, by the way, twice. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. The artwork in it and all the explanations of the various markings on headstones and what have you. It's things I've seen loads of times because I love Greyfriars. I've been there loads of times. And you always look at these different markings, but you don't have a clue what they mean.
Yeah.
And to read a book, so you can pass on my regards to your good lady, but I thought a book was absolutely amazing, totally brilliant.
Because that works for every Scottish graveyard as well, not just Greyfriars, because the symbols are, they actually mean something in particular. So, any graveyard you go to that you see a winged soul or the hourglass or the skull and crossbones, it all means the same on every stone. So it's not just, limited to Greyfriars. It is throughout, old graveyards. So, it explains, the meaning behind them and things like that. It is fantastic. I'm not just saying that because it's my wife's book. I'm saying it because, there was about 15 years worth of research went into that book and it's what she does,
Uh-huh. There's a lot of misconception, isn't there, when it comes to the gravestones and the markings and things. A lot of people think that it's to do with pirates and to do with...
Yeah. You guys know my feelings on that.
I think you've expressed them well over the past few weeks and on the last live. I think your feelings were expressed well. And quite rightly so, because it must get annoying, the amount of people that say, well, there's a pirate buried there and Greyfriars in Edinburgh. It's not a big pirate, do you know what I mean? So as I say, I've actually three questions. Sorry, Jamie.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, people don't realise, or even think about it, pirates were classed as criminals, they were either hung in gibbet cages at the coast to warn other pirates, or, they were executed for high treason because, they were stealing from the government, they were stealing from, and bootlegging and stuff. They were high criminals. They were not given burials in churchyards with headstones, but people just seem to forget that, and just say, yeah. Like plague victims, plague victims were never buried in parish graveyards. They were diseased. They were buried out with the city walls in big pits. Later on, plague outbreaks, the bodies were actually burnt after that. But at first they were buried in mass pits. But again, people just forget these common sense facts when they see it. It's like, there's a pirate. There's a plague victim. It's just like, no, don't tell people that because it's not true.
I suppose if you hear it day in and day out, it must really grind your gears after about a week. You know what I mean? You'd be like that, just go away. But the last I was popping questions in the chat, but I still had 3 questions to pop in, then you ran out of time. So I made a point that I'm going to get them in just now before we get any questions for the girls or for the chat, since I missed it the last time. So the first one is, there's a photograph of Greyfriars. I was actually watching it again the other night. It's a minister or a priest standing in front of the side of the church, and in the background there's a black shadow in the window.
I don't recall seeing that one. No, I don't actually recall seeing that one.
It was on. It was actually on the documentary that you were in. We were watching that the other night. You were in this on YouTube.
He was drunk.
I don't actually watch myself on the recordings, believe it or not. I hate seeing myself on recordings and my voice on, or even on TV and stuff. It was fine with the men in kilts because you couldn't see my face and I didn't really speak apart from going rah, you know. So I could watch that perfectly fine. But anything else, I'm a bit. Was that the French one?
No, it was an English guy that was doing it. You were in it, clean shaven, I might add.
Wow. Well, that must have been a while ago.
It was a gentleman. It was something to do with the church, and he also done an exorcism. It was connected to Greyfriars, and shortly after it, about 2 weeks after his man passed away.
Yeah, that's cool.
In the graveyard against the church, and in one of the windows there's a black shape. Obviously the church is locked up, there's nobody in it, so nobody's ever explained what this this shape could be. So I was going to ask you the last time if you had any knowledge of that at all.
I mean, there has been things reported from different people over the years about reflections in the church and that, but that's all I could put. I mean, because obviously when you're there at night and stuff, or when the church is locked, you get a lot of reflections off the, usually if there's somebody at night, you've got the stained glass windows you can see because the lights are on inside, But Greyfriars, as you know, there's a lot of tall headstones, there's a lot of trees in the graveyards, so there's a lot of things, there's buildings, on 3 sides of it that could be casting reflections. So no, I'm gonna have to look at it. I probably have seen it, I've just not paid any attention to it really. So I will look at that photo again. Good question.
Question number 2 is, in Greyfriars there's a particular tomb. I've passed it many times, so Sarah. I can tell you exactly where it is. I'll give you a quick geography lesson. When you go around the right hand side of the kirk, then you turn right. If you're heading down the hill, there's a small set of steps, about 4 or 5 steps, and right at the bottom of these steps, on the left, there's a tomb, and it's got bars.
Yeah, it's got the bars built up.
The ground is a lot higher than the actual tomb would have been, and that's always puzzled me why that is.
Yeah, no, it's just landfill, really. It's just come down. Obviously, when it rains and stuff, obviously, as you know, it's on the valley now, and it sweeps down that area. As you can see past that, I mean, down the bottom of the steps, the bit that continues on straight, that's not actually a path. That's never been a path. That's a sort of man-made, and with all the rainwater and everything pushing everything down. So over the years, it's just built itself up at that bit. It can be dug out, but it's just never been dug out. I mean, that's that's a lot of years of filling up, and grass and rubble falling from the bit above it down to it as well. There's nothing sinister about that. Like, we weren't blocking up the tomb or anything like that. Foxes used to live in it, actually. There used to be a foxes set in it.
There's actually a sleeping bag in it.
There is. It's been there for decades. It's vintage. I think it's been there from at least the early 80s. Yeah.
Really?
It's been in there a long time. Yeah.
We passed it many a time, and I've always stood and tried to work out, what the hell, how's that ground at, and how the hell does somebody get a sleeping bag away at the back of that tomb? It's one of these sort of mysteries that keeps going. And every time I go, I still stand and stare at it and try and work out why is that ground that high, but as you say, it's a landfill. You and Urban was saying about that medium guy there.
Yeah, Colin Grant,
the medium Colin Grant. It was more to do with the Edinburgh vaults than the. Thanks, Ewan. Thanks, buddy. So my third question, my third and final question tonight, but that makes it sound like a game show, doesn't it?
That's a lie. It'll not be his third and final question.
No.
The Black Mausoleum, I know this is one you're quite passionate about. You get Mackenzie's tomb, right, which is in Greyfriars, actual Kirkyard, and you've got the Black Mausoleum in the Covenanters prison. You know, as everybody knows, it's quite common that people still get the two mixed up to this day. They think it's the same place, but it's not. No. Do you know who's actually buried in the Black Mausoleum?
It belongs to the Dundas family. It's a Dundas family tomb. There's no connection, not Henry Dundas, he's somewhere else, but this is one of the cousins of the Dundas family. They were still well-to-do in Edinburgh at the time. So it's there's no direct, there's no direct connection with George Mackenzie whatsoever. There's no connection at all with the actual tomb that is where the activity happens.
Because I know it's quite common.
Well, I was just saying. I mean, there is no. We don't have any solid proof that it's anything to do with George Mackenzie. You know, there never has been any proof that it's George Mackenzie. It's just both times his tomb in the graveyard has been disturbed. The first in 1999, the second in 2003. Both times something has happened to his mausoleum or his body, basically. That's when things have heated up in this one tomb in the Covenanters prison. It could be coincidence. We don't know. There is no solid proof that it's anything to do with George Mackenzie. But Jan called it the Mackenzie poltergeist because of what had happened, the two, incidents. Well, the main one, and after that, so that's what took hold. Because Jan had to call it something in his book when he was filing all the reports and obviously documenting it all for releasing the book about it. He had to give it a name, and because of the coincidence of what had happened, and then this started happening, literally just after the first time his tomb was desecrated, so it was Jan that called it the Mackenzie poltergeist and then brought it to the public via the book, and then it just took off from there, really.
So there's no actual, I mean, I know a lot of people say, the Mackenzie poltergeist speaks to me and I've seen the Mackenzie poltergeist, but there's no actually any documented evidence to say that there is such a thing as a Mackenzie poltergeist. As far as I'm aware, I might be wrong, but to me, to my knowledge, there's absolutely nothing.
There's nothing at all.
And I did a couple of years back, I heard that I was talking to a guy and he came up, we were talking back to the mausoleum, the Black Mausoleum in the tomb. He says he reckoned there was a tunnel from the Mackenzie tomb to the Black Mausoleum, and that's why it was so haunted. And I just kind of walk away from the guy. I had no answer for him. I thought, so you think maybe George Mackenzie runs through this tunnel and up?
There's a lot of crazy conspiracies out there, and certainly a tunnel under. I mean, there is a chamber under Mackenzie's mausoleum where you look through the gate. There is a burial chamber underneath, and then there is another floor under that. But that was the tomb that was there before Mackenzie's tomb was built. George Mackenzie designed and had his tomb built before he died in that position, and they took a tomb down to build his tomb. That was the Forrester family, and their remains are still there. That's the bodies that the homeless guy fell through the floor and went into the bottom crypt of the remains of the Forrester children. There's 7 of the children in there. We know this because we've got the Book of Interments. We know who's buried there. It gives us the names of what years they were put there. And then Mackenzie's tomb is built on top. Typical, Greyfriars. We constantly build on top. So no, I mean, to get a tunnel from there, they would have to be going through lots and lots of bodies at either side. No, there is no way there is a tunnel. And I'm in the Black Mausoleum every day, and I've not yet seen an exit for it. So no, that is one of the most wildest conspiracies I've heard.
I heard that.
Is it?
I heard that, and I did not have an answer. I thought, I can't answer that. I don't have any words. It's one of the few times I've actually got speechless. Do you know what I mean? But it doesn't happen very often, as the girls will tell you. But I was like, you enjoy the rest of your day, my friend. I'm going to go that way. You go that way, and we'll just bid each other farewell. Do you know what I mean? So So I was wondering who was buried, but we got a couple of questions in the chat, and I've got another one for you that popped up on Facebook earlier on, and then I'll let the girls, I'm sure they've got stuff to ask you as well. There was a gentleman called Paul Campbell, you put a post up earlier on today. There's a gentleman called Paul Campbell, commented on it about City of the Dead tours, and his question was, do you think City of the Dead tours will ever hold overnight ghost hunts in the Covenanters prison? Or in
the prison, well, it's not allowed. The council stopped it in 2008, possibly. The council stopped any investigations, and within their overnight and things like that. Although we have the sole access, we have our own insurance and things like that, but we're under license by the council. It's their land. At the end of the day. They set the rules, and in the licensing terms and conditions, they withdrew the right to have any overnight investigations. There's a lot of residential bits around Greyfriars, and over the years as well, even with unauthorised investigations, the cameras going off, people walking about, screaming, scaring each other and things like that. It has become, a serious issue. Unfortunately, there's a lot of unprofessional teams out there who think nothing of trying to climb into the Covenanters prison over the wall and destroying stones and gravestones and historical stones and things like that. So it's something the council are really, really clamping down on this, especially the unauthorised ones. Plus, with the filming permits, a lot of people don't realise if you live stream from Greyfriars or any council-owned land, you need a special permit to legally do that on their land. And a lot of people in Greyfriars, they don't think of that, and you're live streaming and stuff, and it can cause a little bit of issues for the people doing it. You got to follow rules. Unfortunately, it is a historical site above all else. It's 400 years of history, and it has to be respected at all times.
So what about just general, somebody get in with a wee camcorder or the phone, just a tourist kind of thing, and just, no investigation, just having a wander about and taking some photographs and a wee bit of video. Is that allowed?
Yeah, I mean, that's like, obviously you get people in all the time with their mobile phones, and, videoing it for friends or something. Unfortunately, due to the Harry Potter boom, we get that all the time. The council stipulations are for filming is for commercial purposes or for live streaming for a live event, if you know what I mean, like live streaming on a paranormal page or something like that. Anything commercial, like even photo shoots, if it's a commercial photo shoot, you should have a permit to do that on their land as well. So it's not just videos. But no, I mean, going around as a tourist and taking pictures of the gravestones you think they're great, or pictures of Bobby's memorial stone, that's absolutely fine.
Oh, of course, start the Bobby. We had the Bobby the last time. I was listening to that the last time.
Yeah.
With the Bobby. I had two questions for the chat for you, buddy, and I'm sure the girls want a word with you as well. So it's Christine Miller has put up. Well, she's there. What's the most troubling activity he himself has witnessed?
Hen parties on the tour, without a doubt. Yeah, screaming, "I'll put the willies up here." Yeah, no, that's terrifying, to be honest with you. Oh God, I don't know. I mean, so many years. I mean, God, almost 15 years. There was once we were doing a documentary, and I remember it vividly. We'd finished the film and we were outside off the Black Mausoleum, standing in the prison area, and we're just chatting away to the director and the cameraman. And as we're standing there talking about it, I'm like, "Well, I'm very sorry. It's been quite quiet activity-wise for you." Obviously, explaining that this entity is not a performing monkey. We can't just click our fingers and it starts attacking people. If we could, then I'd be living in Malaga right now or something like that. It'd be great. On my yacht, dressed as a plague doctor.
Yes.
Terrorising passersby.
Yeah, but we were standing there talking, and the director and I both saw it. We're looking at the cameraman, just discussing it, and suddenly 3 scratches just appeared right down the side of his face, just out of nowhere. They just appeared right down, and obviously he never felt it because most people don't feel it happening. He just kind of if anybody feels it, it's almost like it's like a slight burning, tingling sensation. So we never said anything at all. We were just sort of looking, and he obviously knew there was something wrong because we were looking funny. Like, and he was like, what? And he sort of swatted his face, and that's when we sort of gave him the mobile phone to have a look in, to see his face. And then he left rather quickly. But the first time I've actually seen it, because most of the time, when we get reports of it, it's when people have done the tours and then they go home and they're having a shower or they're getting changed or something, and they come out and then it's their partner usually. It said, "What's that?" Because a lot of people it happens to on the back, on the side, so it's places they can't see. And even though there's blood and there's, the scratches are raised, everybody says it's not painful. They very rarely feel it at the time. It's just like a tingling, burning sensation. Even the burns or the bruises, you don't like feel it. It's not like a stabbing pain or anything like that. The only thing it does hurt people is the knockouts. It's when people get knocked out cold. It's not a faint. People get warnings you're going to faint and start feeling dizzy. You need to try and sit down before you pass out. A knockout on the tour sense is 1 minute somebody standing fine, maybe even having a laugh with their friends. This is what ghosts, poltergeists, whatever. Then suddenly, bang, straight down, straight on the floor, straight a bit. So of course, if they fall and they hit their head, or they fall funny on their arm, it could get serious. Yeah, absolutely. But certainly, but certainly the poltergeist direct attacks, whether it's the bruises, the bite marks, the punches, the kicks, the scratches. Very rarely somebody will say, "Oh yeah, I felt it at the time," or they'll freak out. It's usually the hair pulling or the grabbing in the back of the vault that people get more of a fight about. Because they get grabbed from behind when there's nothing but a wall behind them in one of the corners, which we never release. So, because we never tell people what corner it is. Purely for the fact is, we want to keep this real. We want to keep it, believable. So there's only certain things that we release to the public about the attacks. So we know pretty much if it's real or not. Somebody's, they scratched themselves coming out of the prison or something on the gate or something like that, and they've sent a picture going, "Oh my God," and we're like, well, that doesn't coincide with 99% of the other ones. So I'm afraid this has been done, because we're not about to ruin it all by just start adding loads and loads of stuff to it when we've been documenting professionally for the last 21 years.
Yeah, no, exactly. One more question, and it's I'm sorry if I can't pronounce your name. You are
Jacobowicz.
That one. Sorry, man. Sorry, dog. I cannot pronounce your name. I still can't pronounce. I've known her for about 4 months now. I still can't pronounce her. Malikovic or whatever, something. Why do some people experience paranormal activities and others do not feel anything?
It's one of these questions that it does get asked a lot. I think it's one of these things you're either born with it or you're not, or whether you're conditioned to not believe in it, and that's not a bad thing. Let's take it back to when you have kids that've got imaginary friends. Okay, how many of their imaginary friends are imaginary? Parents are constantly telling kids, "Go back to sleep. There's no such thing as ghosts. No such thing as monsters. No, But some cases where you've got imaginary friends that turn out to be older people, or or when the parents go into the bedroom and like, who are you talking to? And it's like, "Oh, I'm talking to Granddad. Granddad died 15 years ago. And this small child is talking to Granddad and coming out with things like, Granddad says you'll find the bracelet. The mum's lost the bracelet many years ago. She can't find it, but Granddad still, certain things about that, it just makes you wonder, But I think if you get to a certain point where you get to like my age of 42, I've never seen a ghost in my life. I'm not about to go into work tomorrow and come face to face with an apparition. I don't think. I'm just not susceptible to it. And some people are, some people are not. And I think that's basically what it comes down to, and what part of your brain you can use, and just it's more sensitive than others, really. I think that's what it is.
You got a comment that was during a press night. We were at Greyfriars too. When I got home, I had a bruiser on my chest with corresponding with handprints. You refill it with paranormal, doesn't perform. Sometimes you can get something during a vigil, and sometimes nothing. It's very true.
Yeah, I was at that one as well. It was 2 Ghost Fests I done with City of the Dead. So I was at that one as well. Well, I would have been there. Yeah, that was in the prison. That was with Phil Wyman, I think, was there. Was doing it, and the bottom one, no, I remember that one, because that's when Mary Kings was involved and everything like that.
To me, that's the trouble with a lot of, those teams. They think that ghosts are there to performing monkeys, that they're, kind of sitting about having a sandwich maybe, and then when a ghost team shows up, they're like, it's your turn. You going through a stone or something, and I'm getting the rest of my piece here. You go. It's your turn.
I'm drink my brute. It's your turn. Away you go.
Aye. I've done the last 3. It's about time you earned your keep. Do you know what I mean? Don't hit somebody. You know what I mean? But they're no. It's to me, I've always said it's like fishing. You can go and sit outside of a pool for hours and get nothing, but then you can go the next day and get a fish within 10 minutes. Yeah. I'm not a fisherman, but to me, it's kind of same kind of thing. Andy Murphy's saying, Jamie, you mentioned you've been doing this for years. What was the last new thing you learned about the place, and when was it?
It's interesting. That's good. That is a good question, actually. Not so much Greyfriars, because obviously, I mean, there is, it's such a small area. I mean, there is obviously certain things that pop up every so often about residents of Greyfriars, and so that's interesting looking into. I would say though the vault side of the tours, I'm finding out new stuff about that all the time. I mean, that's about 13 years now I've been researching that place, South Bridge, and I'm still finding out new stuff all the time. I'm fortunate enough to have a great relationship with the vault owners, Norrie Rowan. He owns 90% of the vaults open to the public, so and I do a lot of maintenance for him as well, not just our section. So I've got a lot of access to the vaults that most people don't have, and it's fascinating. Like we've got there's a few areas that are untouched. I've done a bit of excavation last March when we uncovered some bones, animal bones. There were animal bones, but that hadn't been touched since the mid 1800s. And there's a skeleton remains of a Chihuahua dog in amongst the bones. Which was absolutely fascinating. So, I had no idea that Chihuahuas were actually in the country at that time. But it's without doubt, it is a skeleton of a Chihuahua. Got the skull and everything. So we've got another excavation due coming up when everything relaxes. This bit is down 30 feet below the Cowgate level, and it's uncharted. It's a corridor or something that's been there before the bridge, and nobody's been down there ever since the bridge was built in 1788. So that's a big excavation though. It's going to need proper suits and proper breathing apparatus and stuff, because there's a lot of stuff. It was signed off as a well, and it's not a well because there's archways in the walls and things like that you can see. So I'm dying to get down there.
Wow.
Not really dying to get down there. I hope not anyway. Yeah. I've got to lose some of the lockdown weight before I go down on the harnesses and everything, though. So I said it's 30 feet below street level, so I need to lose some of this lockdown
Here we've
weight.
got another one going into the caves.
I know. So see, when you go to the vaults as well, along with like Greyfriars, what is the most scary area of the vaults that you know of or that people have reported on?
Well, there's 2 areas. I mean, when you first go into the vaults, it could be a bit, disconcerting. I mean, our vaults on Nidri Street South, I mean, they're massive. They're huge chambers. So a lot of people get disconcerted when they first go in. I mean, you are plunged into total darkness. You try to get your bearings, your eyes do adjust. But certainly up the first couple of flights until you go up to the 3rd level into the workshops, the 2 vaults upstairs, the atmosphere changes when you get to the top flight, and then you go into the old workshops. The atmosphere changes in a second. The temperature plummets by about 5 degrees. In both the chambers upstairs, it becomes freezing. Even in the height of summer, you can breathe, and you're seeing the vapor coming out your mouth. Wow. You see it there. under torch. It is that cold. But that's, where the majority of the paranormal stuff happens in the vaults, is in these two chambers. And it is freezing cold at all times. But then when you go out and you go through the old courtyard for the old city mortuary, Infirmary Street is just above us. So we've got part of the old city mortuary courtyard in the vaults before you leave at the last exit, where, funnily enough, the skeleton, the Chihuahua, is now on display in that area. So that's something new for the tours reopening, is we've got the skeleton on display. People have not seen it before because we've been closed for lockdowns. So.
And Jamie, are you able to tell us and the viewers, obviously your tours are going to be opening up.
Mm.
Can you kind of tell us what these tours involve? When, like, for anybody who was wanting to go on the tour, are you able to tell us what would be involved in that?
Well, I mean, we're not. I mean, the company's owned by John Andrew Henderson, the author. Although he's an author, and he writes loads of books. He gives his guides free rein, which means we're not scripted. None of the guides are scripted. Mm-hmm. So we research everything ourselves, and we present it as ourselves. So even if there's, when we're running the tours at maximum capacity under normal circumstances, you could take 35 people on a tour. It's still very personal because we adapt to the group as guides. Yeah. So we basically take you to the locations and we talk to you. And so that makes every guide different. We've only got 2 guides with us who are actors. We've got the 2 brothers, John and Jerry with a G. They're both actors, but it's not always a job for actors. I mean, because actors are great with lines and stuff. I mean, John and Jerry have been with us for years, and they're 2 of the best guides we have. And the reviews speak for themselves about them. But other guides, some of the guides go more on the horror side of it, the ghost side of it. We've got one guide who loves going into the torture side of it, because he's just that way inclined. Ian is just, all about the torture, and he does. I mean, he makes people feel really, really uneasy, but he's bloody good at it, And then you've got somebody back. You've got Josh, who's a professional storyteller, so he does it his way. I'm very manic when I do a tour. One of my reviews I once got was, "It's like being shown round by a high bouncer," which I thought was brilliant. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Because I get really manic. I mean, I've got 13 years of research to tell these people in the space of an hour and a half. It's so much info. It's just, people are paying for a tour, so that's what they're getting. Much info as I can give them. I've had tours that have run into 2.5 hours before, because we're just talking and people are just so interested. They keep asking questions, which is a good thing as well. People ask us questions on the tour, we can answer like that. Whereas if it's off a script, they're like, oh, I don't know about that. No, people are paying you money for giving answers. At least you can do is, have some idea.
I can see you jumping about the vaults.
Oh, absolutely. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I don't see it as a job. I really don't see it as a job. I see it as a privilege to be able to take people into these historic locations and tell them about them, And
you're passionate about it, so it makes it easier.
Oh, you have to be. To be a tour guide, sense, you have to be. There's nothing worse than going on a tour. I mean, we've all probably been on them. You're standing there, it's like, oh, here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the next 2 hours. We're going to be talking about. No, you don't need that. You need, you've got to have that passion there, because that then comes across. Even if you don't like a guide or you have a bad experience with a guy, at least you say, well, you know what? At least they're passionate about what they do. I didn't like them, but clearly other people will. So absolutely. Definitely. Exactly, Andy. That's exactly what it is, yeah.
And I think anybody watching this will be putting requests in for Jamie Corstorphine because they know they're going to get their money's worth.
Oh, absolutely. You'd be begging to let you out at the end of it. Yeah.
So, what these people
Sorry, Shelley, you go.
No, you're fine. On you go, Joe.
And we either get 2 types to me. You either get one who's dead, like the sort of tap of the bus tune, they're all bouncing. I want to hear you scream, and I can't hear you say my name, say it loud and all that, and just like punch him in the face. you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or you get the it's like a plank of wood, and you know he's rehearsed it time and time again, and he's putting you to sleep within the first 5 minutes. You know, this is a church. People go here to worship God, and they're this big door. They go in. You think seriously? So as you say, Jamie, you need to make it personal. You need to make it they're an actual human being who knows what they're talking about instead of some guy who's got a bit of paper and, you know. Carry on, Shelley, since I interrupted you all.
You're absolutely fine, Scott. I'll get it right this time. That's the second time I've called him Joe the Day. And I'm sorry, a wee bit of a giggle there, so I did. Scott's got nowhere near as much hair as Joe's got.
That's not Jamie. I put my hands up this morning. We done a live, part of a Pendle series, and I was saying that you were on tonight, and I says Jamie Corstorphine.
Corstorphine
tonight. Corstorphine, aye.
And what did I say? I says it's bad enough I can't spell his name right, but you can't even say it.
I've been called worse.
Well, then we have been on this doing too many of these lives.
It was last
Andy,
night that done it. We were starting to...
Yes, Andy, it's me. It's me.
No, Andy, that'll no change, buddy. Trust me, that'll no change. That'll no change.
Sam's the boss.
Carry on, Shelley.
Right. So we'll go back to the tours, Jamie, right? So if somebody was booking up for a tour, would there be like individual tours? So like maybe a tour of Greyfriars and then maybe a separate tour of the vaults? Or is there like a package kind of thing where you can do it on at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, we offer 3 different tours. I mean, we've got the underground tour, which is just the vaults, or we've got the graveyard tour, which is just Greyfriars, or we've got the double tour, which is, I mean, each tour should last, the standard tour should last about 1 hour, 15 minutes to an hour and a half for the graveyard or the underground. Or we offer the double dead tour, which is a cut down version of both tours. That tour is 1 hour, 45 minutes. So the double is like the greatest hits. It's like the highlights of both tours. You still get to see everything you would on the normal tour, but you don't spend as long in each location because you don't have the time. You've got 2 locations to get to, you know, so it is cut down, but it's a great overview. But if you have got an interest in either Greyfriars or the vaults, it's always better to do that one tour.
And they can do the both tours at separate times, or even just pick up on the same day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do the vault tour during the day because it really doesn't matter what time of day you do the vault tour. It's pitch black at all times. You know, you're encased in 75 feet of concrete. It's the same as going to the cinema during the day. It really doesn't matter. You know, so the vault tours we do the day. You do the daytime vault tour, then you do the graveyard at night. We only do the graveyard at night as well.
It means Sam is at the vaults. I mean, you really wouldn't ken whether it was day or night. Can you imagine staying under one of the under the vaults for maybe say 6 weeks or something like that? You would be delirious by the time you can back out.
But the conditions would get you first. You get a really chesty cough. It would affect your lungs really quickly because of the atmosphere, the damp atmosphere in there. Within a week, you would start feeling it. Absolutely. Even in today's world, you would start suffering pretty bad.
Start to affect you.
Yeah.
You would end up with like pleurisy or end up with like pneumonia, things like that, because of the wetness in the vaults as well, because it is quite damp. So it would automatically go to your chest and cause like respiratory issues. So
yeah, it would, absolutely. I mean, and that's without all the when people, you know, were crammed in there because of poverty, you know, in the 1800s, you know. But then that's how you had the cholera outbreaks. You had you had cholera, dysentery, typhoid, and typhus. I've just invented a new disease. There we go. Get that on the roll.
There you go. You heard it here first.
So you know, the conditions have a lot to play that. But then you mix that with the smell, and then the sort of open fires, the smoke. You know, it must have been horrendous, absolutely horrendous. But people had nowhere else to go. But that was what killed most of the people in the vaults, was the disease. You know, it was just so unsanitary.
Dysentery and everything, into it. It's like pure. Like, where did their waste go? Where
left it, just drained out.
Left it or flung it into the corridor or whatever. So,
but you also
obviously
had the waste from above. You know, because Southbridge leaks. That's why it was never used for its purpose, because it was never waterproofed. So the water comes in to this day. It still drips in from the road above, and it brings in whatever it mixes with. So back then you had the horse manure.
Because that's what they used to say about the mile, was it not? That they just used to shout Gardyloo and fling it out their window.
That was normal. That was, yeah. I mean, in places like Paris, it was a bit more dignified. Where it originally started, you know, they actually would take it and put it and throw it in the street, into the gutter. But in Scotland, when we had the huge big tenement buildings, you know, you're talking up to 14 stories high in Edinburgh. You're going to try and balance a bucket all the way down 14 flights of stairs. And, you know, with somebody coming up, you're going down narrow stairways. You're going to end up spilling it over. So in Scotland, we just opened the shutters and, as long as we screamed Gardyloo and launched it out. But that was perfectly normal. Perfectly normal. That was, it was normal for them. Yeah.
Whatever came from up there was heading straight down to the vaults.
Well, pretty much at the bottom of the Cowgate, because it would all slope down either side, either into the North Loch or indeed down into the Cowgate. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about 3.5 foot thick human and animal excrement mixed with straw in the Cowgate. You know, it was a complete slum at that time. It really was. It was the poorest of the poor.
Can you imagine if any of the royals at that point were coming down the hill, or you know, like Lord Darnley, he was renowned for like coming down the mile and going into like the brothels and stuff by John Knox's and things like that. So imagine the likes of him coming down and getting rattled with a bucket of pish, basically.
Well, but you would. That's why you were meant to scream. I mean, it was only allowed between the hours of 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. Yeah, that was the only time. So if anybody was out that time of night, you knew there was a big chance. So there is the word of "hod your hand," which is obviously Scottish for "hold your hand." If you were picking up, you heard Gardyloo, because I mean, the only really dangerous time I would think would be at 10 o'clock on the stroke. People would have these buckets all day in their house festering away, you know, humid conditions. So 10 o'clock came, they wanted to get them out. So that was really the dangerous time, was when the clock first struck 10. You didn't really want to be out in that time, because you could shout "hod your hand," but somebody across there, you know, three other floors across is not going to hear you. So really, but during the night, if it was quieter, you probably could, as long as you got flat against the wall. Because when it came out, it was actually launched out the window, because it's illegal. You know, this is actually funny. Now, this law has never changed, right? If you need to go to the toilet in Edinburgh on a night out, right, as long as you don't urinate against a wall of a building, okay,
you get away with it.
Because if you this goes back to the Gardyloo thing, so that's why you had to launch it, because if any of your waste trickled down the buildings, you'd be jailed for 30 days because it was unhygienic. Seriously, unhygienic to let us slip down the building.
So I could literally go in the middle of the Royal Mile and they wouldn't about an eyelid.
Technically,
imagine picking up.
I think there's something called a Public Order Section 5 now that would argue that case. Yeah,
I'm sorry, but imagine going up with that bucket and tripping up. And tripping up, and then
but of course,
I'm sorry.
But of course, when you're out, you know, at that time, and if you did hear, I mean, usually people who, if they were sober, they would shout "hod your hand," they'd get out of the way, you know, reel it against the wall, it'd be fine, they might get a splashback. However, if you've got drunk people, what's the first thing a drunk guy does? When he hears somebody shout anything at him, a drunk guy will spin round, right? Spin round, and he'll look up to where the noises come from. So what's he going to get? He's going to get it right in the face. But of course, he's drunk, so he's thrown up. But that's how he gets home, and that's I think where the praise club, you know, going home shit faced comes from.
Okay, we've got to have a laugh, haven't we? I mean, it's all no serious stuff. You've got to have a laugh at these things, because, like you. I mean, that is a bit of a strange one. Anybody else, if you get caught peeing outside, that would be you. Breach of the peace.
Well, look at Ozzy Osbourne.
It's legal in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Like Ozzy, he peed up against a statue in Italy, and was jailed basically for peeing up a statue.
Who
Mental.
was that, Sam?
Ozzy Osbourne.
So it should be.
Ozzy Osbourne. Oh my
Aye.
God.
There's an
But you could
Italian,
just imagine-
an Italian statue of some sort of. It was like somebody high up, and he peed up against it, and off he went. Got carted off to jail.
Well, you can imagine somebody with a bucket got to shout out and then actually tripping and spilling the bucket outside the window, and then it going all over the wall, and then he's getting done because he just tripped and fell.
30 days.
I mean,
Imagine trying to tell that to the likes of John Knox or whatever. Excuse me, sir, but I fell. I tripped over the
maybe that's
cobble.
maybe that's why they called it Garde Lou, because they were that fear to drop it.
Well, Garda.
I got the
It comes
loop.
from- Actually, where it comes from is from the French, beware of the water. That's where it originates from. It's the Scottish pronounce of it. It's not obviously, it's not French. It's Le Garde de l'eau. It's beware of the water.
Aye.
Right. There you
If
are.
only.
Good job
Well,
you've
this
got us here to give out the correct facts here, Jamie, in the midst of all our laughing.
You've got to
Well, when we
laugh.
come to Edinburgh to film Darkest Mile, ladies, go to the bathroom first before we get there, or when we get there. You know what I mean? In a place that you're allowed to go, please. You know what I mean? No outside the Princess Diana shop or something like that. Just squat and go. With whoever's wondering about. If you're allowed to do it, it's fine, son. It's law.
Not in a building. Yeah.
Jamie said it's allowed because it's law, so that's fine. That's good enough for me.
I said the law was never changed. I didn't say there was new laws invented.
Oh God, things are popping into my head. I think if we get any more questions for the chat,
Just keep them in your head, Shelley. So see between the vaults and Greyfriars, Jamie, what's the kind of most popular tour? What do people tend to do? They go for the underground or above ground?
I mean, well, the most popular tour we do is the Double Dead, but that's because it's kind of both tours. It's hard to say, but I mean, I think the vaults over the graveyard. But again, I mean, we were running just the graveyard tour for years until we got our section of vaults. So it kind of balances it out, really. I think the vaults just take the edge over the graveyard, though, which is a shame because the graveyard tour is, the one we're known for, and it's a great tour. But of course, weather has a lot of that. As people have got the choice either being outside when it's windy and rainy or doing a vault tour when you're inside. The weather's got a lot to do with that as well, unfortunately.
yeah.
And
Although you are
your
in the
vault,
tomb at the end of the graveyard tour, but before that, you are in the open.
so what does your vault tour consist of? I know it's a tour of the vaults. Because Steve and I went on one a couple of years ago, and we were showing kind of like 4 or 5 different rooms, and that was basically it. That was the Blair Street vaults.
Yeah, because Blair Street's all on one level. You go downstairs to get into Blair Street, and then you've got the little corridors branching off from each other. You've got Old Reekie tours. Their vaults are basically a corridor, different to Blair Street. Blair Street's more kind of natural formation corridor, whereas Niddry Street is a cut corridor, and you've got the rooms coming off of it. You've got the witches' room, and you've got the stone circle in Niddry Street vaults. Whereas our vaults, when you go in, you actually go up the 3 levels within the vaults. We've got chambers on each level. You go up. You can see the existing levels where the old floors used to be. So you see it was split up, and then, like I said, you come back down out of the vaults towards the end. You've got the old courtyard for the mortuary and things like that. Funny you should actually mention Lord Darnley, because he's got quite a lot to do with the vaults. Not because they were built. I mean, Darnley was dead, years before the vaults were built. But where he was assassinated at Kirkyfield in 1567 is literally just literally 30 odd yards outside where the vault back door is now. The area of Kirkyfield where the Lord Provost House, that's now where the quad is, the University Quad, on the corner of Chambers Street and Nicholson Street, that area there, and we're just under the Royal Oak across the road. But just that's where Darnley was assassinated, was in the South Orchard of the Lord Provost House, which is now forms part of the quad. Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Mm.
How it all connects.
Oh, yeah.
So your vault tour is the vaults. Because I'll tell you why I'm asking, because Sarah and I went and one, and I'd been dying to see the vaults for years. So we jumped through Edinburgh one night for the vaults tour, and we ended up going to 4 or 5 different locations on the Royal Mile first.
Yeah.
You know, and to be honest, no offence to the company, what have you, but you know, the tour guide was staying in the room. We went to Cathedral and a close one, and I thought, I'm really not interested in this. You know, I came here to see the vaults. And by the time we got to the vaults, 10, 15 minutes in the vaults, and then that was it. We were back up the stairs. And I found that, you know, a waste of time, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I actually mentioned that. Well, if I'm doing a tour, I'll always mention that. The sooner I can get people to the vaults, the better, as far as I'm concerned on my tour. You know, because like you say, you're paying for a vault tour. You know, I mean, you do get some companies that do sort of split it up and they do round, which is fine. You know, it works for them. But I've always said, you know, the sooner I can get to the vaults, the better. Some of our guides make maybe 2. I mean, we have to stop before we get in, basically set the scene, explain the conditions, you know, explain why the bridge is where it is, you know, and then the reasons behind the bridge. And then the last stop I do, but this is all on the way to the vaults, you know, 2 stops, one to do the history, the conditions, the Gare-de-Leu, and then at the bottom of the Cowgate Arch where the bridge is, I'll stop there just so people can get a side-on view of the bridge and the levels, like seeing the archway before we actually head inside. And then you can see it from the inside and how it looks different from the outside. You know, I usually go into the vaults and I'm taking people back to about 1800, just as the final businesses had abandoned the vaults and the sort of legal trades were then starting to move into the vaults at that point. Because everything's been left as original as possible. If something doesn't look original in our section of vaults, then it's not meant to be original. You know, like the candle holders, they're from IKEA. You know, it's pointed out all the time. It's like, I know they're from IKEA. I bought them. It's to hold candles. But visually wise, I mean, some people do come on the tours expecting to see loads of stuff, you know, I don't know, like fake mannequins, you know, like horse carts and straw all over the place and stuff. But when the businesses abandoned them, they took everything with them. When the illegal trades moved in, the vaults were empty. This is exactly how they saw it when they first came in to use them for illegal trades. Exactly how you are seeing them now. You know, the rawness of it, you know.
Aye, what you see is what you get. You know, I mean, you say you show people the arches, Murphy. That, to me, I had been interested in that because it's related to the vaults. You know, so you stand listening to that because it's related, but see, the other tour I was...
Yeah, there's nothing to do with the bridge. So, you know, it's just information you don't need. It's fascinating information, but that's got nothing to do, to me anyway, with the vaults. You know, witch trials had long gone before the bridge was built. You know, it was a totally different time. There is a slight connection, though, as Nicholl Edwards' house was further up Nidri Street, and he was involved in the witch trials, and seemingly there was witches tortured in his basement in his house on the site in Nidri Street now. So there is a slight connection there with the witches, but we certainly don't go into that in my tour. Bye, Shelley. Just not enough.
Should we buy another?
Yeah.
But you said we don't even back. I told you she'd be back. It happens all the time. Sam does well at times. She just disappear and then, you know, pop back on. So we don't even blink an eye now. You know, we just carry on going because we know she'll be back.
Sorry,
a question. Go on,
No, you're all right, Scott. On you go.
A question's just popped into my head here. I don't know if I asked you this or not before, but get back to Charlotte's book. Right to the start of Charlotte's book, there's a drawing of St Giles Cathedral, and behind me you've got the old kirkyard.
Yeah.
You know, it's a drawing where the graveyard used to be. So, you know, I had a look at it and I went on Google Maps and it's now, I think it's now a car park or there's something else there now, obviously.
Yeah.
What happened to the actual bodies that were there? Were they moved or?
Yep.
You know, way back?
We've got them in Greyfriars. They were moved from there. Hold on a second. I've got an alarm going off. It's not a smoke alarm. 2 seconds.
I think
That's
it
my
was to
chicken.
do with Mary King. Mary, what did he say?
No, St Giles was the main burial ground for Edinburgh, for the centre of Edinburgh for a long time. Basically, it was overflowing, it was jam-packed, and they were wanting to rebuild the area. So what happened was they got all the bodies, they dug them all up, they put them in carts, including John Knox, James Hutton and things like that. They put them in a cart, and they transported them to Greyfriars, where they were just put in the ground in Greyfriars, down the bottom end towards the North Gate, the Grass Market end. The first bit was where the old monastery was. So they were all brought and basically put in there. There is no, markers for them apart from John Knox has got his little marker at St Giles under the car, where the car park space is. That's where he was originally. But no, they were all moved and they were all put in Greyfriars. They were just transferred to consecrated ground. No different to the HS2 line is doing nowadays. A lot of people get shocked by this. So how can they just dig up bodies, rest in peace? And it's like, but they've been doing it for centuries. Houses are built on top of old graveyards. Like just now, the HS2 line, in London, when they dug up 15,000 bodies in the cemetery and removed them and reburied them and stuff like that, So, I mean, it's happened for centuries.
So that area now is always, I can't remember if it's that area now that you see, is it accessible?
Yeah, you can walk around it, yeah, it's open to the public. Yeah, it is a car park, not a public car park. It's a car park for the courts. It's the Advocates' Library and stuff that's round there now, Parliament House and things. It's all round there now for the High Courts, and it's all. Which, funnily enough, the Advocates' Library, George Mackenzie set up as well.
I was thinking that obviously, you're doing Darkest Mile with yourself. You'll be wanting, you'll be a resident guest on Darkest Mile. Our own tour guide, basically. And I was thinking that would be a good location to do a wee bit of filming in, because obviously not a lot of people's going to realise that where they're parking their car is where the churchyard used to be.
Well, there's a lot of people walking across it that don't realise. Let's say, I mean, it is a private car park now. But yeah, I mean, you will get visiting lawyers and things like that, and solicitors and legal counsel who might not know that it was it was a graveyard at one time.
So I was thinking that would be a good location, even if we can't get into the car park, even just
No, you can't.
In that
area. Yeah, you just walk around the church. The cafe is actually there. The church cafe is around the back.
All right.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, it's accessible 24/7. It's open. It's open to the public.
That's that side. I've wrote it in my pad. St Giles I put a St Giles Cup card to remind me of it. I think that'd be a good one. You see, people park their cars there every day, like walk across it, whatever, and they don't even realise what used to be there. And that's the whole point of Darkest Mile. All these wee, as we've said before, all these wee locations that people get by every single day and don't realise the history. It's actually just there. And how it all kind of relates together. Do you find that you're setting the dead tours that a lot of people see? Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know this. And
yeah, I mean, sometimes, yeah. I mean, you do get a lot of people who do know the history sort of side of things, and then the people who question us about it, and and it's not what they've heard, or they heard something different, or like clarification. I mean, we only go on our own research, so as you know, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, I certainly do research via the old school books. My folder alone on even my digital copies of my Edinburgh books is something like 40 gig worth of PDFs and booklets and old transcripts and things like that. Archives, I use archives a lot. Rather than looking at websites. As you know, there's a lot of false information out there on websites, but some people take that for the gospel truth, and then they come on our tour and start saying, what a rip-off. I thought we were going into Mackenzie's mausoleum, and it's the Black Mausoleum. It's like, but you did. And they're like, but no, that one there. It's like, but we've never claimed to go into that one. Nobody goes into that one. That's his mausoleum. That's not where the attacks happened. You did go into the Black Mausoleum. So even after that, you get people that complain afterwards, thinking that they were meant to be getting something completely different because they read it on a website, not even our website. And that's so there's a lot of information out there that is false and very misleading, certainly. So archives
Yeah.
and books are the best way to research. Absolutely, it's what I've been doing for years. Like old directories and things in Edinburgh are fascinating.
Edinburgh is a fascinating place, isn't it? You could talk for hours, and you could wander about for hours, just looking at things. Because everywhere you go, there's something new that you'd see, or that you'd think,
Absolutely.
"Oh, I've not really read much about this, or I don't know much about this." And before you know it, you've got like another hour or 2 hours under your belt, and you're no further forward.
Absolutely.
It's like the Flodden Wall. I mean, there's still part. I know there's a big chunky inside Greyfriars, but there's parts of the Flodden Wall still, dotted about Edinburgh, and they probably somebody's side wall to their garden or something like that, and people don't actually realise what that wall is.
Well, there's old buildings still, but parts of them down the Royal Mile and everything like that. You've got the parts of the Telfer wall as well. That was the second wall, the one before the Flodden Wall. You've still got parts of that dotted about Edinburgh as well, the old boundary walls. So yeah, I mean, there's loads of history a lot of people don't realise. There is still parts of the old monastery in Greyfriars as well. You just have to look for it. The monastery it stood, the whole reason Greyfriars got its name was because of the monastery, with the monks with their grey habits. That's where Greyfriars comes from.
The Greyfriar monks, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very good.
I've the monastery. I need to go hunting now. As soon as we're allowed, I need to go hunting in Greyfriars for parts of the monastery. I've never ever noticed that. I've noticed the Flodden Wall, obviously. I mean, you can't miss the Flodden Wall, do you know what I mean? But you've got me thinking now, I need to go kind of hunting. But no, as you say, it's all the stories that come about Greyfriars and the Mackenzie poltergeist. And I've sent you a couple of clips this week on Messenger. I'm not going to get any detail, but just, beyond stupid, basically.
There's a lot of them.
One involving woods, that's what I'm going to say. But and a stick. But anyway, sorry guys.
Scott, I think we're going to get you lost when we go to Edinburgh again. You'll be away searching for different bits, and we'll be there trying to do the job.
I've got the keys for all the tunes, so we'll just lock you in one. It's fine.
That'll be fine. We'll just lock them in. Back to the airport.
He would love that. That's no torture for Scott. He would absolutely love that.
Just lock me in. I don't care. I'll be a happy man. Give me a can of Iron Brew and a Mars bar, and I'll sit there. I don't care. Big Mars bar. No, you wee short, crappy one. The jewel.
And you need a 6-pack of Iron Brew.
Aye.
The big boss Mars bars and a bit of Iron Brew, and I'll be a happy chappy. No, I mean, I don't care. Stick me anywhere. But no, I mean, some of the stories with Greyfriars are just beyond, people make up. And the Mackenzie poltergeist, I don't believe, no disrespect to other people's beliefs. We've all got our own views and opinions, but I don't believe that the Mackenzie poltergeist is an actual thing. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's definitely energy. There's been many theories over the years about it. Jan's theory is it's a whole combination of pheromones built up and everything through the tour, and it's a collective energy that triggers something.
If something's getting fed enough, and it's a belief, then that belief gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And because you've got a belief, you get the feeling that there's something there, and it might not be there. So
there's also it comes a certain element of how some of the guides may not even know they've got the ability to a certain amount of hypnotism. They can condition the people on the tour throughout the tour. They could say up to 15 times at a certain point, this is where people more like collapse, or people collapse at that point, people collapse at this point, and then suddenly when they're in the area and there's a trigger word, this is where a person collapses. Bang. It could be. Again, I just don't think we've got science available to us today to explain what it is. It's just we just don't have the science. There's something there, and it's not human. That's how I describe it when people ask, "What do you think it is?" I don't know. I'm not a specialist. I'm not a parapsychologist. I'm not any kind of specialist about it. I know what it's capable of, and I've seen what it can do, and I've witnessed it, and I just know that it's not human.
My thing on Greyfriars, I feel I've been there hundreds of times, and people call me. Some people call me a medium, but I don't use that. I never ever will. I don't believe it. I'm not a medium by any means.
I'll call you a small.
I'm wearing a large now, actually. This is a large sweatshirt. Sometimes, other people call me a sensitive, and again, I don't even say anything, but sometimes I'll get feeling that, somebody's in the room and what have you, but every time I go to Greyfriars, I get the feeling that it's peaceful. I've never felt threatened, but you get the feeling, that you walk in a crowd, into a room, and there's loads of people kind of standing around the walls, the perimeter kind of thing, just standing, watching. That's the kind of feeling I get. I'm not saying it's real, I'm not saying there's thousands of spirits standing about in Greyfriars waiting for a bus. Do you know what I mean? That's just the feeling I tend to get. But all your tours.
The calm before the storm.
Sorry, Shell.
The calm before the storm.
Yeah.
I think it's a pure suggestion because everybody reads about Greyfriars and what have you, and before they go, and so they're expecting, this dreadful place, this horrible place where something's going to happen to you, and that's before they even go.
I mean, the main graveyard is completely different, but as soon as you walk through the gates of the prison area, that's a whole different atmosphere in there. Obviously, there's no roof on it; it's open. There's just a wall separating you. But
why was it put in there? Why was the prison put into Greyfriars?
It was going to be used as a bit. I mean, at that time, the buildings obviously behind where Mackenzie's tomb is now, the buildings weren't there. It was basically about the size of a football pitch. It went from where it is now, from the Flodden Wall. Then it went along to where Forest Road is now. So right along that back area, it was basically a big field. It was going to be used as a burial area, an extension of the graveyard. But after the Battle of Bothwell Brig, there was nowhere big enough to hold 1,200 prisoners.
Right,
the Covenanters, apart from this open air area in Greyfriars. So that's where they were put. It was purely because of the size of it, and they needed it to hold that many people. 1,000. There's no shelter. There's nothing there. It was just open field. And it was the world's first concentration camp.
Oh my God.
And they were in there for a month. It wasn't just a couple of days or a kind of weekend. There for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, because they wouldn't repent. You were either with the king or against the king.
That's it.
But religion was such a big thing, we can't fully understand and put ourselves in their positions because we can never get into their mindset. Religion was such a big thing to them, and you would just turn around and go, right, it gets us out of here. Yeah, okay, whatever. We'll go with the king then. We'll take him as the head. We'll take the prayer books. That was a big thing for them. So to ask them to do that, for us now, we'd be lying, going, aye, whatever, mate. Aye, no problem. Brilliant, let's go. Back then,
your lies to get out there.
They were willing to die for what they believed in. Absolutely. And many of them did.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, we done Endo this morning, I was thinking, because we're talking about religion then, Shelley, weren't we?
Yeah, and I was just thinking that, Scott.
And I was sitting listening to the girl this morning, I was thinking about tonight as well, also with Greyfriars, the Covenanters, the whole, religion thing. And as you just says, Jamie, Shell probably says, well, it played a major part across the UK. I'm not knocking anybody's religion. We've all got our own beliefs, but it was a major, major thing, down through the centuries back then.
It was.
Shelley.
Your religion could make or break you, couldn't it?
It was life, It was important. It was more important than life to most people, because that's all they had, And so that's why it's impossible for us now to put ourselves in their positions, and put ourselves on how could they do that to these people, or how could they do it to them? How could they do it? It was a whole different world. We cannot even begin to imagine what the mindset was for people, because we're all privileged in this world, in this situation, to have not having had to go through that, because it was life or death, absolutely, for what you believed in.
Totally.
And as you see, these days, somebody do was to say to me, right, you're going to bind up for 3 months, or you're going to believe in this. I say, I know, I believe in that. Right, I'm a,
Exactly, it was so easy.
Read that sign. Yeah, absolutely.
give me your pen. I'm off. But back then it was no good.
There was that many people trying to stick the knife in as well to protect themselves, just so that they get. And then people were hiding, just taking it.
It was
so
the
time, rather than doing it.
Almost the conclusion of the 50 years. 50 years of unnecessary slaughter. In Scotland, the killing times. Totally unnecessary.
And most it was to do with religion as well, like you say. It was all to do with
what it was about. Yeah.
It's like even your royals, like your kings and your queens. It was all, you can't rule here because this is a Protestant country. You can't rule here because it's a Catholic country, etc., etc.
Well, look at Mary Queen of Scots. Try to change the country to Catholicism.
Catholic, that didn't work.
But that's why Mary didn't have any, inclination for the English throne. She had much too much difficulty with Scotland, her own country, trying to get us sorted out first before she even attempted to go for England. But she never wanted it. She never wanted it. Again, that was all, peers and things like that got her into that situation.
It'd be like modern day. You're next in line. You're entitled to the throne, etc. Blah blah blah. It'd be that sort of thing, like in modern day. Whereas back then, it was just like it was actually the court that run it, not the actual monarch.
And every day, absolutely. I mean, and every day that that whoever was in charge would be they'd be looking after their own life, because it could end. I mean, look at most of the Stuart kings. Most of them were wiped out.
Very hell bent on certain areas that all seem to have a sort of inclination for like witchcraft, and for demonology and things that were against the Catholic religion.
See if you were kind of well-to-do and you were in all these well-to-do families. See if you knew that there was like there was a meeting at the church, so you had to go and you were doing your prayers and stuff like that. See all the people that were poor and they were in the sticks and didn't even hear any of this, that they were to go to the next town or in the village to the church. And if they didn't go there, then they were blamed for just no practicing the correct religion. And then automatically, along with other kind of, I don't know what to say the words, but apart from that, along with different kind of accusations and stuff like that, like hearsay and gossip and stuff like that, they would literally just be told, well, you're kind of practicing in witchcraft or whatever because you're not conforming to the right way of the law, basically.
Yeah, it was, and there was a lot of sadistic people around at that time as well. But I mean, even for somebody like George to get the nickname Bloody Mackenzie, in 1600, Scotland, that wasn't an easy nickname to get.
No. Could have been a butcher.
He was doing his job for the king.
Yeah, that's all he was doing. He was doing his job.
Aye.
If he hadn't done it, somebody else would have done it. Like I keep telling people, Mackenzie gets a bad rap, but he didn't murder anybody with his own hands.
No. It was on orders of somebody else.
Yeah, and you will get, sergeants of the army or the troops who will be sadistic and will take things too far. But I think there was a lot of it happening to isolate certain incidences. I think the orders were coming from somewhere to make it as bloody as possible. The disemboweling and stuff like that as a warning and hanging their bodies up and things.
So someone asking Jamie if you've ever thought about being a history teacher?
No, I'll leave that to Charlie. Yeah, I'm specialist on certain things, but the general other ones escape me. Like geography, I'm crap at geography. I can't do that.
Who's that?
It'd be interesting though.
Hi, Forrest.
A Mark Ward News. Is that one of your friends, Jamie?
Mark Ward? I don't think so.
I think that might be a troll.
Oh, brilliant. Let me at them. No, I've got to be careful. I can't have Mark zucking me again. Not again. I'll be on a 30-day jail term again.
I'll just remove that.
There's always one.
We escaped it last time, so you know.
We did not too bad. We're actually not too bad. We don't get bombarded too much.
It's not letting you come off it. It's saying it's lost connection to her Facebook.
No,
It's not letting me remove it.
that's all right.
Right.
If Sarah's
Any
still in the
smelly
chat,
feet?
she can.
No in this house, pal.
No.
Fair
Hi,
enough, I mean, there has
Forrest,
been some
welcome on, though. Yeah.
strange smells.
You
Are one
know,
of the
where
things
we
that's
still.
exploded.
Yeah. What was that, buddy?
That's it done.
I was like, there has been recorded strange smells in the mausoleum, in the Black Mausoleum, before. Strange smells like rotten flesh smells and things like that, and some weird smells. So you know, I might have a slight point. Yeah, smelly feet, quite possibly. So it might
Well,
be related.
apologies, Terry, if he knows him. He's away.
This is, we've had the odd troll on.
Might have had a point there,
every now and
actually.
again. We
it's
don't kind of
harmless.
tolerate it as soon as they show up. You know what I mean? Because there's this day, you know, people like troll. We've had trolls on YouTube and what have you, putting in comments and what have you, but
Yeah.
they're really no worth, you know, bothering about.
Yeah,
If you've nothing else to do.
It happens everywhere. You
Let
just
them-
can't help it.
Let them fire in. It's not affected us. If, in any part, you know, if anything, it's helped us. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah. Obviously, the advertising's getting out there somewhere. So
That's it.
well, that's it. It's somebody else putting your name out there, so it's helping. So, you know, let them go. And we can't complain, you know, because they say we've got Darkest Mile with yourself coming up, Jamie, which we're really looking forward to.
We're looking.
So everybody wants to be seeing Jamie's face quite a wee bit with paranormal history in the forthcoming months. So you better get used to it.
Absolutely.
Well, there's a good point there. Even the trolls love you. You're in their minds. I'm glad, Forrest. I'm glad that we're in their minds.
We must be bothering them.
It means that you're doing something right. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Carry on. So see, we've got Darkest Mile coming up with Jamie. We're going to be seeing him quite a wee bit, and we're going to be going. Well, I'll let Jamie tell you some locations if he's picked out some yet, because I know the last time we spoke, you were going to have a wee look for us.
If I'm being honest, I've not actually sat down with that yet.
Oh, you're slacking. For stuff
Yes,
you're
right.
slacking.
I know. I should.
I think it's good to keep people in suspense anyway. So
That is always good. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm keeping you in suspense.
Oh, that's a
That's-
compliment.
Jamie, I threw you in there.
There is,
Teamwork, we're two at the bottom. We work together here.
there is one location I'm looking forward to if it's possible, Jamie. You and I spoke on the phone about it. I'm not going to say, you know, but it's a cellar.
Mhm. What was that?
A
Jamie's
cellar.
having the spooky happening.
The
What
body's
happened there,
ended up.
Jamie?
A cellar? What was that? God. We all had the conversation like last week or something. This
Part of
is
a
an
pub.
age thing.
Part of a
Ah.
pub.
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
no. Oh, my God. I can't remember
Part
that.
of a pub connected to the vaults, and bodies used to
Oh,
end up
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
It's what they say.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, I know what you're talking about now. Yeah. See, I just had something to trigger it there. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I'm
I
really,
remember.
but that's actually a good idea, Jamie, to keep, you know, not to advertise where we're actually going.
No.
So that
No,
everyone,
Yeah.
please, well,
Charlie already came up with that idea.
Jamie, that's a good one, because you're keeping us on suspense.
Yep.
all right, I
That's
never
what
heard you say it, Shelley. I do apologise, though. I never heard you.
No,
I
but
thought
we
you're in charge.
don't want to give away too much too soon, so we'll keep that a cliffhanger.
Yep, that's been reported a few times. The rotten flesh, or smells like rotting flesh. People say it's like it's off meat. That's strong.
that one. You don't want to feel that one.
That's Forrest. She's our artist, and the Welsh team as well. That's Forrest. You see, meeting her up with her. She's going to try and make it up as well for Darkest Mile, hopefully, and Joe will be up as well. So, but no, that is a good idea, Shelley. We just keep them all quiet, no say nothing.
Zip.
If you like touch with that, Shelley, I take it that's a yes, darling.
Yeah.
So we'll get that coming up in the next couple of months. We're starting PIH tours as well that's down in England, but more about that as well. But we're looking forward to taking. We want to take one of your tours, Jamie, just to come and be guests on your tours.
I'll take his round.
Just to watch you do your stuff, do your thing. You know, I know.
Absolutely.
I know you had a wee competition running today.
Yeah.
I know one person that was dying to win it.
Oh, she's not
dying. And she's up above you. Do you know? So I don't know how you want to pick the best question you've had tonight. Also, it's your company, your tours. Do you want to pick who it is?
What was the question that I had that I said it was actually a really good question?
That was from.
That wasn't me.
Just can't do anything with her. Can't do
Andy?
anything with her.
Andy?
Was it this one here?
Yeah, that one. Yeah. That was a good question. Yeah, get Andy to PM me.
Right, I'm out. See you.
Yeah, get Andy to PM me and we'll sort that out for him. Yeah.
She's
Fantastic. Well done, Andy.
I'm not going to pretend I'm happy, Andy.
He might sell you.
Andy,
He might,
to be fair,
Are we?
You guys are getting a tour anyway. I don't know on that.
I know.
I'm just grateful
fair,
I'm a woman.
To be fair, Andy always gives good.
Andy always
On
gives
you
good
go.
answers to questions.
No, it gives good
Jamie,
questions out.
Aye.
Always
I
ask
know.
good questions,
Mm-hmm.
Andy.
It's paid off this time. Yeah, I was on the phone to Sam earlier on this afternoon, and she was banging on about this free space, this free tour. You know,
You guys are getting a tour anyway, so it really doesn't matter.
No, but it's the principle of the matter, Jamie. The principle of the matter.
This is what I tried to tell her. It doesn't really matter because you're going anyway.
A shy Wayne doesn't get any sweeties.
I know, but you're wanting something for free that you're already getting for free. So, do you know what I
Go
mean?
once if you can go twice.
God's sake.
I'm lost for words. I'm totally lost for words, my man. I mean,
Sorry.
but I think we'll wind it up there. So, Jamie, thank you very much again for coming in and chatting to us. As I said to you, you will be seeing a lot more of Jamie on Exclusive Tour channel over the next few months. Once we get released into Edinburgh, that's us. We'll hit the ground running. And we're back on tomorrow night at 9 p.m. with Wayne Miles from London. You might remember Wayne, he's the guest that left me alone on the panel the last time I pressed the wrong button. And I was there myself for about 10 minutes. Back on. So he's on tomorrow night. And if you're watching Wayne, hopefully you'll stay for the full thing. Fingers crossed.
Somebody's just popped up there. Sorry, Scott. Somebody's just popped up there and said that you'd have the little darlings strung up. That must be in reference to the being a history teacher.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, that's my sister, Mary. Yeah, yeah. She
Oh.
knows.
Ah,
Hi, Jamie's sister.
And
I
yeah,
mean,
she knows my relationship with children. It's just they're fine as long as they stay away from it. Yeah.
You've got a
thank you
customer
so much.
there. She'll be on one of your tours in the future.
Look forward to seeing you.
So we'll be posting, just keep an eye on, obviously Saturday Dead tours, but we'll also be posting the links and the details. Jamie passes them over and on our page, so everybody can get a chance to see when they're good. So when is it your first? Did you say the 1st of May?
1st of May, hopefully, yeah.
1st of May, folks. Get into Edinburgh and get on one of their tours because, in my opinion, no disrespect to anybody, in my opinion, they're the #1 tour operator in Edinburgh. And as you're seeing tonight, Jamie is a genuine guy. What he sees, what you get. He just be putting a big show. There's no gimmicks. There's no smart talk. He's just a normal guy who knows his stuff. So if you want a guaranteed, real factual tour,
Intriguing guy. Intriguing guy. You need to smell it.
I like the intriguing.
Not just a normal guy. This is Jamie Corstorphine. He's intriguing.
Intriguing. I like that one. That was good.
See?
He's intriguingly in his. How's that?
This always ends up like this.
I know.
An
It just goes
exceptional
to-
tour guide at City of the Dead Tours in Edinburgh. Look it up
He's an
on
enigma.
Google. Go and visit.
But yeah, I do have to go now, or my wife is going to kill me because I've got
I know.
dinner in the oven. So she's going to kill me. So I won't be doing any tours. There'll be no tours because she'll be hanging me up.
Oh well.
Coming in,
And that
and hopefully tomorrow night. Bye. Bye.
take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.